Welcome to our channel. This is Theophilus, where we discuss monotheism and we analyze on the historical developments and deviations of the monotheistic religions. Well, today we are going to look on a very important point. We are going to look into the Edict of Milan. Edict of Milan. Well, Edict of Milan is an edict made by an emperor of Rome. This was Constantine the Great. Yes, after he had his battle and had victory after the battle, it was like a discussion and the things here and there that he mentioned that his glory and victory came as a result of a divine assistance, which was believed to be associated with Christianity. For he said that in his dream he saw a cross, and in that cross he was he was told that his victory will come through that cross. And so that's how he made crosses over the shield and the weapons of war. And after the battle, he met with those who are Christians. And when they inquired to know why their side, their faith is used in the battle, then they found that the emperor had a vision where he was cautioned to use the sign for his victory. Excuse me. Yes, it has been condemned by many believers, other religions, other monotheistic religions, and any of the other branches of Christianity have condemned that Constantine had nothing divine. It was just all political reasons to associate with Christians, maybe to help him win his battle. So that's where I'm going to discuss this day. Was Constantine had a divine influence to for him to decree the Edict of Milan, or it was just a political game to achieve some political reasons and some political gains and victory over the emperorship as a whole. Yes, I cannot so much deal with the vision of Constantine, but basically I use the historical evidences to see what went around and what came around and how things were done and how they were being exploited and how they got into where they are to our days. Yes, when I look into Constantine, as people assume that those who are against his edict and claim that it was a political game, they claim that Constantine just wanted to have warriors and armed men and men of war from Christianity. So, in short, he needed a support of Christians to win his battle. And he used them, and after using them, he lured them through their religion and the Edict of Milan so that they may be his followers and they should submit to him in all that they do. And that's how they debunk the main thought and the theory of Constantine and Christianity. Well, as in my analysis here, I can't see Christians whereby an emperor would have looked into his territory and see that he would get the support of Christians. What we know about Christians is that they were less than 10% in the time of Constantine, the time before Edict of Milan. They were less than 10% within the communities that were within, or within the religions that were within the Roman territory. And so, in that case, it is not adding up to have a 10% because when we talk of a less than 10% of our population, then we have women and we also have old men and we have young men and we have the strong men. So to analyze that, Constantine had an idea to bring the less of 10%, in which amongst them are women. children and old men, we might find that they were less than 5% the men who would have joined Constantine to war. And the fact that Constantine was not fighting a religion, so he would have less have needed another sect or a religion to assist him in his battle or to make him win against who. Another thing, we look into Christianity. Uh, Pre-Constantine church or pre-Constantine Christians, the believers, they had a character of giving themselves in the battlefield and not in the battlefield, in the arenas where their enemies, the former emperors and the governors and the Jews, used to condemn them. And they were killed, they were given to lions, they were given the character and the enthusiasm or behind their faith was quite contradicting because they were giving themselves to be killed and they were celebrating their death and they were celebrating deaths of their fellow believers who were killed for the sake of faith. So we have account of many bishops and many church fathers who gave themselves to be killed for the sake of their faith in Jesus Christ. So this kind of believers, this kind of people who just given themselves to be killed, what can we say for an emperor to invite them to fight his battle? The people who cheaply give themselves to be killed, it is not matching. So the theory that actually Constantine brought in Christians to help him win the battle, a big X. There was nothing like that. And the development of Christianity, after Constantine, there was another emperor who came who was against the faith and brought a setback to the faith which was already developing. And there are many things also which are said about Constantine, which himself never made a decree over. The development of Christianity, where Christianity was then established as the religion of the emperor, came later by Emperor Theodosius. So take away Constantine from most of the things. I have had many believers and even most of the believers, those who are of the Christian faith, their leaders, sometimes they come up with points and I think it is lack of historical evidences and they are not matching or fitting the trend. I think the devil has sent another agent to interact with what I'm doing. Let me chase it away. Yes, religious people always see anything contradicting whatever business to be certain. I am one of them. You will forgive me for that. But they are birds, and whenever they hear noise around, they try to celebrate and ask themselves what is going on. So that is not part of the business. So we are discussing on Constantine, and we have come to a conclusion that Christians had no interest in his battle, and Christians were not strong enough to assist him to overcome. So we can't put it as an evidence that Constantine was interested on the Christian believers to assist him winning his battle. That is a big X. So there is another very important issue here. That is the story of the seven sleepers of Ephesus. That is where now it's like God rubber stamping the conversion of Constantine and the Edict of Milan, and even any development that Christian would become now the religion of the Roman Empire. So, as I have said, the seven sleepers of Ephesus, if you haven't heard of the story, it's said that in the days of Odysseus, when Odysseus was killing the believers, chasing them and condemning them, killing them, there were seven young men. When they were being chased, they ran to the mountains, and there in the mountains they found a cave where they got in and slept. So after they went in and immediately they slept, things were over to their story in that occasion. And so things went on. Constantine came in, and things changed, and the nation then became Christian. And so after many years, after now the whole Roman Empire was a Christian empire, what they are now having a Holy Roman Empire. It was over 200 years. So then these young guys woke up. And when they woke up, to their surprise, is that the cave in which they entered, to them, which was, they felt like it was a few minutes earlier, was like a bigger change, because you know the nature of the nature keeps on changing. When you entered, there were a few weeds, and now there are several weeds. There are roots of plants running here and there, and you feel like uh, the cave is transformed into something too old and quite funny. And so they decided to send one of them to the shops nearby, at least to buy them a bread, because they were like hungry and they wanted something to eat. So the guy went to the shop with the coin of Emperor Decius, which is an emperor who ruled last 200 years. And you know the difference with the developments, revolutions. These developments have been there since then. So we each and every awakening uh, years and generations, there must be a shift from one generation to the other. And that's why when the guy reached the market, you and I can believe that even the dressing code might have a difference with what the community which were now in that generation where they were resurrected into were quite different. So they were quite funny. And when the guy went to, he narrated the changes and the surprises he meets on his way to the shop. And when he got into the shop with his coin was rejected. And the shopkeeper saw a very great madman from hell or from unknown world. And in that case, the shopkeeper brought attention of the people to come and help him see the ghost or the man from the past. And so when the guy was seen, he narrated the story on his part, because he was surprised, because wherever there were statues of idols, now stood crosses and icons of Christian faith, and the places where had the temples of demons and idol worshippers, they are standing churches, and the guy was quite surprised. And so when he narrated the story, you know, in those days, not everybody went to school and had idea of things that passed 100 years earlier. So they have to look on the people who are expert in history, and the narration of history reached to them, and they can even answer the names and maybe the language that is then used, because there is always a development both in the language, attires, and even food people are eating. Like his corn was no longer in use, and so things like that was a surprise to the community that he walked up into. So this news went even to the emperor, and the emperor had to come and see their fellow team from the cave. And this is not just a fiction or a story made up. The cave is well preserved, and as I'm speaking, the cave is preserved by an Islamic government that is in Turkey. You know, when I mentioned Ephesus, Ephesus is somewhere in Turkey. So the place is well preserved by the Islamic government, because the story I'm narrating, it is not in the Bible, it is in the Quran. So I will tell you later in another chapter the reason why the story is in the Quran and not in the Bible. Yes, if I can just brush it off, Quran was a Nazarene book in the early stages before Abbasid would come into the in 740s to transform it, edit it, and make it fit only for Islam. So the first parts of the writings were Nazarene sect of Christianity, which did the first. They were like four books, and we can only find three of those books now made as surahs within the Quran. So I think that's the point, and this is not ending here. I will still do much on this. It depends on your comments and your questions. So I will lean on your questions and your comments to do the next thing on this topic. Thank you. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. For you are the one who will lift me and make me better than I am now in terms of analyzing and narrating of these stories and historical things here. Welcome. Thank you.